When dealing with a patient who is in end of life, you're going to either refer them most likely to hospice care or to palliative care, depending on the diagnosis. Now, before we really get started on quality versus quantity, I'd like to explain to you the differences between hospice care and palliative care. The main difference between hospice care and palliative care is that hospice is given to patients with a limited life expectancy. In fact, hospice is actually a type of palliative care. It's given to address the unique needs of the people with terminal illness and support their families. In palliative care as a nurse, palliative care helps manage the advanced symptoms of a patient's serious illness and be there to support their families during end-of-life care. Palliative care also provides assistance with advanced care planning, goal coordination, care provided, as well as helping the patient in their home when they need prescriptions, when they need assistance, even if it's just for bathing or showering. These patients require long-term care versus hospice care, in which the patient usually has a short lifespan left to live. However, the goal of both are the same. Palliative and hospice care are both used to promote the quantity of life and the quality of life, to treat the person, to support their family, and affirm life, always following the patient's wishes and being an advocate for the patient. Now, before I get started, I will say this is a touchy subject for me because I have a passion for this type of care in particular. I actually hope that one day I will work in hospice care because I will love it. Now, when we are talking about the quantity of life would be to increase the patient's time of living, which in turn can cause increased pain and suffering, prolongs life, which may not be necessary for the patient. However, as we've seen as nurses, patients who do not have what is known as an advance directive or have a DNR already in place, sometimes the family gets to choose what is best for the patient. And sometimes that choice is to keep the patient alive at all costs. I have seen this many times, and it's really sad to watch. And it's unfair to the patient. So, as nurses, we really need to focus on teaching patients about advance directives because they are very important. Now, another thing that is considered when you are working toward a quantity of life for a patient, to increase time, it's going to require invasive procedures. These procedures might be for a feeding tube, a gastrostomy tube. There are just so many different surgeries that could be required, and all it does is cause the patient long-term suffering. It takes away from the quality of life. Why do we choose to do it? A lot of that I am unsure. However, I feel in many accounts that I have seen, it is selfishness of the family because they are unable to let go. They have a fear of loss and death. Some patients' families are just misunderstood or misunderstand what is going on with the patient. Family is a very important part of being with a patient through end-of-life care, and we are there to support both the patient and the family. However, we are mostly there to be the patient's advocate. And this is when we must speak up if the patient is suffering and being kept alive just to increase the number of days they're there. It's unfair to the patient, and I apologize, but as I said, I have a passion for this. Now, let's talk about my favorite part, which is the quality of life. In regards to the quantity of life, which is to increase the patient's time of life, the quality of life is focused directly on the patient's symptom management. It is to keep the patient comfortable, to keep the family comfortable. It is used to support and manage symptoms such as pain, discomfort, fatigue, Whatever the problem may be, quality of life is one of the most important things when you are dealing with a patient during end-of-life care. Comfort care is keeping the patient comfortable, whether it be giving them pain medication or giving them sedatives. Sometimes this is required to keep the patient comfortable. You're there for emotional support. Emotional support not just for the patient, but for the family. That family is learning how to deal with a loss that hasn't happened yet. You're also there for spiritual support. Spiritual support is very important with the quality of life. And every patient may have a different ethical background and a different spiritual belief or religion. And you're there to support that. As I said, as nurses, it is our job to be there for the patient, to advocate for the patient, to communicate with the patient's doctors and other team members, such as hospice care, palliative care, whatever it may be. It is our job. When dealing with quality of life, it involves the family, the nurses, the doctors, the caregivers, the patient, the patient's medical power of attorney. There are so many different things that are required when working with a patient during end-of-life care. But the main focus is the patient and making sure that everything they believe and support in end-of-life is taken care of, to make sure that person is not suffering or dealing with pain or discomfort. Unlike when you want someone to increase their quantity of life and increase their pain and increase their suffering. The quality of care is there to comfort the patient, not keep them here on earth or make them suffer, but instead to manage their symptoms and to keep them comfortable. Being a patient advocate sometimes means standing up for the patient, even if we're standing up against what the doctor wants. Doctors are here to heal ailments, to bring life, to keep people alive, to heal illnesses. Doctors and nurses are a little different. Yes, nurses obviously want to make the patient better, but we understand that the patient may not get better. Doctors, on the other hand, and I'm not saying anything bad about doctors, they're wonderful, but sometimes it's a lot harder for a doctor to send a patient to palliative or hospice care than it is for a nurse, because we are the patient advocate. We want what's best for that patient. As nurses, quality of life is very important to us. So it includes things such as daily living and psychological well-being, especially in the late stages of life. Everyone deserves to be happy and comfortable. And as nurses, we play a huge role in both of those aspects. Comfort, care, quality, that is our job to the patient. Quality of life is to be higher in those who live in a nursing home because they have access to that care. They have activities, resources, therapies. Hospice and palliative care can come in and treat them. But as nurses, we're not always going to be in the nursing home. We may be in the hospital. We may be in a long-term care unit that is for rehab. It could be in a doctor's office. The thing is, no matter where we are as a nurse, the quality of patient care is our number one goal. If that's not the case, then you shouldn't even be a nurse. So, in conclusion, quality of life versus quantity of life is a big difference, because we're not here to focus on how long that patient's alive. We're here to focus on the quality of their living. Thanks. I really hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you took something from it. If there's any questions you might have, feel free to email me at kristiancrist@ucwv.edu. Thanks.